Watching TV has changed over time. Streaming has become the new norm. That's why Golden State Media Concepts television podcast dives headfirst to the world of cord cutting. Want to be on the loop of what's hot in Netflix? Or if it's not a preference, what about original shows in Hulu? We've got you covered. Join us as we fill in the blanks and talk about movies to stream and what show you should be binging. This is the Golden State Media Concepts television podcast.
Thank you for tuning in to the GSMC TV show podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Priscilla Welch. We are almost done with another week, and if you are not doing anything tonight or the next couple of days, I have ideal shows that you may watch. Later in the show, stay tuned for my review of Kenny Ortega's brand new show. You do not want to miss it, only at GSMC. All right. Who's ready to get started? Woo! So, I know now I already talked to you guys about how we are missing summer. It's past Labor Day weekend. But I do have one more show to present to you all tonight. That will start off our show before I get into our special treat later on today. So first, I would like to discuss the most spectacular show of the summer on Netflix. It was trending like crazy between July and August, and it was actually number one on Netflix throughout midsummer. So I definitely want to start off with that today, and then later on we'll go into our special treat. So the TV show is called dun 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 Cursed. Yes, you heard it here, folks. Cursed on Netflix was streaming like crazy over the summer. So for those of you who are fans of King Arthur movies or King Arthur TV shows, or just a big fan of the legend, maybe you've read some books, well, this is the show for you. Because not only are we going to see the journeys of these beloved characters that come to life in this show right before they start turning either evil, right before they have become king, right before they become Lady of the Lake, right before they become knights. No, this is it. This is what begins it all. Okay? Let me tell you. So, of course you heard of movies like The Kid Who Will Be King in 2019. We had King Arthur in 2017. King Arthur in 2017 again, but it was called Excalibur Rising. We had Arthur and Merlin in 2015, King Arthur in 2004, The Sword and the Stone in 1963, Avalon High in 2010, which was also on Disney+, so you can also watch that, and The Sword and the Stone from 1963. We have Camelot in 2011, Merlin in 2008, and the King Arthur story has been mentioned a few times on another spectacular TV show called Once Upon a Time. So the three shows was Camelot 2011, Merlin 2008, and Once Upon a Time. Now, that season on Once Upon a Time was lit, but I'll talk about that on another episode. So, Curse actually started and aired July 17th, okay? And again, you can still watch this on Netflix because it's like one of those Netflix originals that goes based off the books that actually encouraged and inspired this version of the King Arthur legend. Now, this time, we don't focus too much on King Arthur, even though he's one of the top characters on the show. We actually focus on the mysterious Lady of the Lake character. And of course, as you may know, the Lady of the Lake is the one that kind of helps King Arthur along his journey. And she's some type of like powerful like sources of the water that everyone talks about. Like she's beautiful, this, that, and a third. So the female lead, which is played by Catherine Langford, and you may know her from actually 13 Reasons Why, which is also on Netflix. She is the lead in this show, and she plays this spectacular Lady of the Lake. Woo! But of course, she's not Lady of the Lake yet, and we don't even know what's going to happen in season 2. So let me break it down for you for season 1, because you must watch this show. So again, we're focused more on Merlin than King Arthur himself, which I love because every time you listen to or watch or read anything that has to do with the King Arthur legend, they really don't go a lot of times, depending on what you've seen and heard, on details of like, how did this all started? Like, how did Morgana become who she was? Why did King Arthur and Morgana end up having a falling out to begin with? They don't really show the visual as to how that led up to that. And I love that this show is kind of starting to do that. This is just the beginning. Again, this is only season 1. All right. So where we start on the show, basically Lancelot is also there, and Percival. Lancelot was not always apparently on King Arthur's side in this version. He actually was against this race called the Fae. The Fae is actually where Catherine Langford's character Nimue comes in. She becomes the Fae Queen. Now, it wasn't always like that at first. She actually comes from a druid village. Now, at the time of this, where the show starts, the Fae and non-Fae people, which is like regular humans, they are at war. They are against each other. Okay? So basically, we have Lancelot, who actually works for the Red Paladins, which is like people under the Pope and everything, and they want to defeat the Fae because the Fae are not like normal humans. They are entwined with their elements, with themselves, with the earth. And Nimue, she starts becoming queen of the Fae because she ends up getting the Sword of Power. The Sword of Power, as we all know, is called Excalibur, but in the show, it is not called that yet. So King Arthur, what I love about this show is actually a black man and a mercenary. So before he becomes a king and before he becomes a knight, he's actually a mercenary. The show goes more in depth with Fae and non-Fae magic uniting the realm. It gives a backstory to Morgana and how she came to power as well. Her character may be gay or bisexual. She's also black, and she was a nun, as her starting out story goes. But she also helped develop this underground for Fae people, because Fae have been literally started getting hunted down throughout the years, and we start to see that more throughout the season 1 as the head Red Paladin starts literally killing them like they're nothing. And this show is actually based on the books of Arthurian legend, which is written by Thomas Wheeler. So Nimue is the first queen of the sword, aka Excalibur, which she will later then be called Lady of the Lake. And later on, she will also be King Arthur's ally. So the cast right now we have is Catherine Langford, which is Nimue. Gustav Skarsgård is Merlin. You may know him from Vikings. He also plays Floki. Then we have Devon Terrell, who plays King Arthur. Daniel Sharman, who plays Lancelot. The Weeping Monk, who plays Shaylin Broom. And the Weeping Monk is the character, the actor, Shaylin Broom. He actually, you would know him from Teen Wolf. I don't remember what his name was, but he was the really tall, blonde-haired dude that was under Derek at the time, before he was more Scott's ally. He ends up actually dating Alice on the show once Scott and Alice broke up. And then we have, playing Morgan Le Fay, which is Morgana, we have, what's her name here? Okay, so yeah, Morgan Le Fay. Okay, so we also have so many questions with this show as well, like, who would Pym be? Now, Pym is another Fae, and she's actually, like, best friends with Nimue. And the way the story goes is one day, Nimue's village gets attacked by the Red Paladins. And right before that, she finds out that she's supposed to be, like, the new leader when it comes to holding the elements and being there for her village. But her village always had something against her because of the fact that she is so in tuned with the elements, specifically the dark side of it. So they don't want nothing like that representing their village and for the kingdom. And Pym is played by Lily Newmark. Then we have Emily Cotes, who plays Sister Iris. And she also is a powerful character. We meet Sister Iris actually when we meet Sister Igraine, because there was a time in the show where Nimue has to hide out as a nun because she had to go into hiding, and King Arthur, Arthur is the one that helped her by taking her to his sister's Coventry. And in doing so, she ends up finding out how they're trying to attack the rest of the Fae people. And she finds out that Morgana, aka Sister Igraine, was actually helped to build the underground for the Fae. So they started coming up with those whole plan and started rebelling and a revolution, and things get very, very interesting. We also see in the show Merlin. Merlin is, as for some reason, does not have his power. And we also find out that Merlin and Nimue have a connection. I will not reveal what that connection is. You have to watch the show to find out for yourself. But it's very important to the show. And we then also find out that before Nimue actually gets the sword from her mom actually got the sword from Merlin. It's actually Merlin's power sword. And he had used it over the centuries, over the years. Come to find out, when she went to the convent, she found out that the Pope, as well as the Red Paladins, are also trying to go after the Sword of Power. So it's very interesting how everything starts getting connected. And we find out why Merlin lost his power, why Merlin didn't want to use the Sword of Power anymore. And we come to a point in the show as well where he actually wants to destroy it. Now, the whole reason why Nimue starts being called the Queen of the Fae is because she starts fighting for her people and becoming a symbol, because she's like one of the most powerful ones out of the Fae people that actually could stand up against the Red Paladins and the Pope using the Sword of Power, aka Excalibur. It's funny how it also worked out too, because I thought, and this is just my theory, based on watching the show over the summer, I find it weird how King Arthur, because he wanted to prove himself and become a knight, he, at one point in time in the show, he actually steals Excalibur from her as he was dropping her off where his sister was staying at that nunnery. And it's funny because I'm like, eventually you're going to get the sword, bro. Like, it's actually meant to be for you. But a lot of people don't realize that, like I said, based on this story, Nimue is the one that actually gets it first. It's really her sword. But even when they met each other, and they met each other in a weird way, he right away kind of knew how to wield the sword. So it's pretty weird, because it's like, even though maybe at the time he wouldn't have been considered pure of heart to actually take up on a weapon like that, he was able to show her how to like hold it. And it's because he studied. He always wanted to be a knight. He always wanted to learn the sword, and he did. So it is very interesting. I love what they did with the show. I love the powerful female characters and how they break it down, even down to her best friend Pym, who actually meets Vikings along the way of her journey when their village got destroyed. And again, we have like a lot of Easter eggs in this show, like who is who. Like I said, the Weeping Monk, he turns out to be Lancelot. That's his real name. And then there's a little boy called Squirrel, who is actually one of Nimue's allies. When he gets older, he turns out to be Percival. That's his real name. And we all know Percival, who is another Knights of the Round Table. So I really hope so far that this show at least goes up to the point where we are in depth of King Arthur and his reign, and Guinevere and Lancelot, and what happens with everyone at the Knights of the Round Table. And because we have like a few movies that does that, but we want to see what leads up to that. I want to see King Arthur and Guinevere's wedding. But as of right now, the way season 1 is going, we may not even see Guinevere. I have not seen her character yet, but that could just be because she has not entered into the show yet. But the theory may be that it will definitely be a trio relationship between Guinevere, Arthur, and Lady of the Lake. Because based on the legends and the books I've read, I've never heard of Lady of the Lake and King Arthur having some type of relationship, which also happens on the show. So right after the break, I will continue more with Cursed and give you a little bit more Easter eggs and what's going on with this show. You don't want to miss it.
Want to know the latest and hottest music hitting the airwaves? Don't be left out. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Music Podcast. Keith keeps you on the loop with everything you need to know from pop, rock, hip-hop, and the top 40. And we'll throw in news of your favorite artists, concert and tour dates, and so much more. Listen no further, because this is the gold standard in music podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back from the break. If you're now tuning in, you're just now catching up with us. We're talking about a brand new show that came out over the summer called Cursed. And it's actually based on the books of the Arthurian legend written by Thomas Wheeler. So far, we have talked about a little bit of the characters and what's going on so far in season 1, and we will now continue. So, as I stated before, there is a connection between Merlin and Nimue, and I would love if you go watch the show and you'll find out what's going on with that. And as I stated, she later becomes Lady of the Lake. At a certain point in time, she's also known as the Wolf Blood Witch, only because in the beginning of the season of the show, when she loses like people and when the village gets rampaged by the Red Paladins, and when she comes around the sword, I feel like this is more like symbolism, but there's these wolves that are coming to attack her in the woods, and she has to figure out how to use the sword. And what ends up happening is she cuts them like they're nothing with the sword of power, and of course there's blood spattered everywhere, so it's a pretty like graphic scene a little bit at that part. And since then on, as they were tracking her and looking for her and the Sword of Power, because they realized she escaped, they started calling her the Wolf Blood Witch. But also because she started attacking the Red Paladins just like how she did with the wolves. So that's just my little theory based on my perspective and when I watched the show. Again, King Arthur, his character at the time, we could just call him Arthur. He just wants honor. Morgana, at this point of her life, like, she's been through a lot. There's a certain point in the show where she actually loses someone that she loves. And we find out that she blames herself, especially because at that point she was able to escape the Coventry. And the nunnery actually ends up being burnt down because they feel like they had brought nothing but darkness within the nunnery once they found out that the Wolf Blood Witch, aka Nimue, was in there, and how there was a few sisters that may have been a part of her breaking and entering. And Morgana, she's been through a lot. Of course, she's a little bit of a rebel, just like her brother, but she believes she does it for a good cause, and there's nothing wrong with that. And I start to see and start to understand her character as to why maybe this is why she ends up becoming evil later on and becoming actually King Arthur's rival, her own brother. And it's like when she's finally sucked into the power, it's like she doesn't hold back whatsoever. And I feel like it's because her character, so far as the show is developing, is tired of the oppression. And she's tired of seeing the Fae people, as well as people like her, being treated a certain way. So then we have Sister Iris. This is a very interesting character because at the ending of season 1, she is actually accepted into the Red Paladin because of something that she did. She was very naughty. And she's actually just a child, and she acts like she's not. And she is like basically the first female to join the Red Paladin. So even though her character is a bit of an antagonist, and she's definitely going to be a big antagonist in season 2 because the leader of the Red Paladins in season 1 is no longer alive. So I will give you that Easter egg. But Sister Iris now will be taking over. And the theory is that she will have probably an army of children in season 2 because now she's deliberately, like, directly serving the Pope. And as I stated, the Weeping Monk who actually was working for them, he was like their prized soldier, and he was cutting down like so many Fae and so many of their enemies. So Sister Iris will kind of, I think, be taking those two gentlemen's places. There's also a certain part of the show where they explain a lot about the magic and the fae and the legends that go along with it. And I really like this because a lot of times when we watch other movies or watch other shows or read other books even of King Arthur, we forget that at this time, even though it was a certain era, that there was also a lot of magic involved. But whenever we think of the magic, we always think of Merlin. So I love how they go in detail. Like, the visual effects of this show is amazing with the power, and how Merlin may not even be the only one that's supposed to be powerful, but he's supposed to be the most powerful of them all. But the way his show is moving, it's like Merlin, it's like most of the time always ends up serving, if not himself, a human king. And they use his power, which makes sense because, of course, King Arthur needed needed the help of Merlin to basically get certain things done, at least on a magic level. All right, so for example, Morgana, she actually in the show, I will reveal this as well, which is very interesting. There is this character throughout the show that speaks to even Merlin called the Widow. And the Widow is someone who actually collects dead souls. And she is touched somehow by this spider who had some part in reviving a loved one that she lost. And she ends up kind of going under the influence of it. But later in the show, we see that she becomes the Widow and takes that face. And this actually aids her in protecting her and Nimue in one of the final episodes of the show. Again, we have no recollection of Guinevere, but again, like I said earlier, that can come later in the show. I think so far there is a Viking woman that ends up fighting with King Arthur as they're trying to help the Fae out, and she's called the Red Spear. So I think there might be some type of negotiation or interest going on there, only because of the look that I noticed that they gave each other as I was watching the show. And what I found interesting, this is just a few questions of my own, is why the Fae are never mentioned in the future, especially during King Arthur's reign, or even the Vikings that wanted power over the land and feel like they were the rightful heirs. Because there's also a Viking man, and he calls himself like a Viking king, with daughters who actually try to come with some compromise with the Red Paladins, as well as, I believe, Merlin. But it seems like they want to go on the Red Paladin side, at least it was in the show. But I think in season 2, they'll explain a little bit more about that, because we're definitely going to see a big epic fight between the Viking clans, between the man and his daughters and Red Spear. And I always wondered why Merlin serves other kings. I just don't get it, because as we saw like flashbacks, like clips and pieces throughout the show, he is so powerful that he doesn't need to serve another human king, but it's like he wants to help them in a way, but kind of also for like his benefit. So I really want the show, at least in season 2, to go in more detail as to why he does that in the first place. And I want to know if we will see a connection between Nimue and Lancelot. And here's why. Based on the legend, especially if you're a fan of the King Arthur legend, Nimue, as becoming Lady of the Lake in the future, she actually is supposed to raise Lancelot. Lancelot is raised by Lady of the Lake, which is pretty weird, but somehow it happens. And so far in season 1, that may not happen, because it seems like Nimue's character is a little younger than Lancelot. And Lancelot is basically a grown man already, so I'm not sure if they're changing that up or if they just took that out, but it's very interesting. Of course, we definitely still want to see Knights of the Round Table in season 2. And again, this is the show for you if you need relatable stories of religion, if anything that has to do with like unworthy kings, killing of families, war, violence, romance, magic, world power, twisters, especially because sometimes in shows, things that you expect to happen may not happen, or it'll just be something that you never expect. You never saw that coming. I love shows like this. And then, of course, we have Light Arthur. Like, we don't focus, again, too much on King Arthur himself, or just his character. I mean, he is a pretty big character, though, in this show as well, because he has a lot of significance to the entire era of his reign. But even before that, he's still a fabulous supporting actor. Then we also have this interesting dead king of the underworld. He's actually kind of zombie looking. He holds a lot of magic treasure. And at a certain point in the show, Merlin actually has to go to him and try to like manipulate and persuade him because he wants this certain type of green fire that actually can destroy the Sword of Power, aka Excalibur. So I hope they go more in detail again with that in season 2. And again, we want to know too is if the character Nimue is actually going to become Lady of the Lake because of the way season 1 ended. So you have to watch the show to actually find out what I'm talking about with that. And looking forward to season 2, the release date, the plot, and the cast. Again, Percival, as we found out, aka Squirrel, he may become the knight, and he is from the Druid village. I, first of all, never expected that Percival was even part Fae. And like I said, this goes back to why in so many of these stories that were already made about King Arthur and was already produced and directed, why did they not somehow incorporate the Fae if the Fae were part of at least this era in the world? I wish they did that. That would be very interesting to see, like, hey, it's not just humans and swords, that there's a lot to behind it, and I feel like we deserve to see more of a background story. And then based on the actors' quotes of the actual actors and actresses that play these characters, for Nimue, they said the actress has a lot of untapped power. And the actor that plays Arthur says, of course not the king's, he's not the king yet, so we still have to see King Arthur's entire journey before we can actually see him crowned as King Arthur. Right now, there is not a second book yet, Wheeler said, and I quote, but there will be soon. Okay, there will be soon. And they're also interested to see more of Sister Iris because, like I said earlier in the show, the theory is that there may be an army of children for season 2 since she's also a child. She'll be leading them anyway because she's just crazy. But they also might be like telling her what to do, may take advantage of her. So I definitely want to see more of that because she has such a beautiful lead and I want to see where it goes. Also, ending with season 1, I will say this, Merlin has the Sword of Power now. I'm not going to tell you how he got it, but he has it now. And somehow at the ending of season 1, that last episode, that final episode, before Sister Iris puts a golden mask on her face and officially becomes a red paladin, but like more of an elite red paladin, Merlin gets his powers back, okay? And you have to watch the show to find out as to why he gets his powers back. But doing this, he also took Morgana with him. So I feel like this is where also this has been a huge rumor over the years of the King Arthur story, where Morgana actually was one of Merlin's pupils. Okay, she learned a lot of powers from him. I believe I also saw that theory on one of the TV shows for, I think it was either Merlin or Camelot. There is a TV show that you can actually watch. And again, the TV shows are Camelot and Merlin. 2 different shows. And Morgana says at a certain point in time, like the actress that played her, that she was actually Merlin's pupils, and that's where she learned her power and her magic. But I feel like there's more to Morgana's power based off what I've seen on season 1 so far. Expect in season 2 that there will definitely be a war between the Pope, Red Paladins, and then his elite group of Red Paladins, Merlin, Morgana, King Pendragon. Basically the king, honestly, the human king, he's irrelevant to me. The only reason why I feel like he is even supported in the character because he does have a hand in the future of what happens between King Arthur's reign, obviously, but because Merlin also used to work for him. So he is also a big deal, but I can't stand his character. Then we have Lancelot and Percival will probably be training together and eventually join Arthur and the Red Spear, which is, again, that Viking clan that helps Arthur and the Fae out towards the ending of the season. As of right now, though, there is no trailer, there is no teasers, But it may be a while before that happens, of course, due to the pandemic had pushed back everything. And again, as I stated, we are looking forward to see who Guinevere is going to be, and the love triangle probably between Arthur, Nimue, and Guinevere. So, folks, that is what's going on in the TV show Cursed. Again, you can watch, I believe it's like 8 to 10 episodes right now on Netflix. It was trending all summer, so I suggest you go ahead and watch that. If you're still missing summer and you're tired of being cold, because it's definitely fall now, or at least it will be fall in a few days. So, coming up after the break, I will finally break it down to you. We have Kenny Ortega's new show. You don't want to miss it. Stay tuned.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Hey everybody, welcome back from the break. So again, if you're now tuning in, we just finished discussing the summer TV show, the smash hit, Cursed. Again, it is an Arthurian legend written by Tom Wheeler. It's based off his book. Again, as I stated earlier in the show, for the past two segments, that the book does not have a second book as of yet, but he's currently probably working on it and probably one out soon. So it may go based off of that season 1, and it may be a while before we actually do see a season 2. So we're hoping that comes out very soon, but it will not because of the pandemic. It's okay, y'all. It's okay. We're here. We're still doing it, right? We're still here. So stay safe, stay blessed, and here we go. And now the moment you've been waiting for. If you are a fan of Kenny Ortega, you're going to want to watch this show. So please listen to me. On Netflix, it came out 2 nights ago. Julie and the Phantoms. Yes. Now, those of you may not know what the hell I'm talking about, but this show, I binged watched it. Literally the same night it came out, y'all. It's amazing. So if you love musicals, if you love romance, if you love coming to age, if you've ever loved any of Kenny Ortega's work before, I am talking about Descendants. I am talking about High School Musical. Who says we gotta let it go? Okay? What? Kenny Ortega, people. And if you love Halloween, you probably watched Hocus Pocus. So yes, Kenny Ortega. Kenny Ortega. Come on, man. So basically, he just did a deal with Netflix, and this is his first successful, I should say, TV show. Okay? Now, this show so far, I mean, I already can't wait for season 2. Like, you ever watch a show where you'll sit down and watch it in just one, like, literally, like, it will just keep going, especially with Netflix, how it just keeps playing, and then you come to a certain point after you watch, like, maybe 3 or 4 episodes, it will ask you, like, hey, do you want to continue watching? Hell yeah, I want to continue watching. Play it. And I think this show has a lot of, like, original music. I mean, personally, I don't listen to a lot of bands, but the music, the creativity and the pain and the love that they have, these characters, is just amazing. Now, the star that plays Julie, she is 16 years old. I actually looked her up. Her name is Madison Reyes. She's from Brooklyn, New York. Again, she's 16. I think her parents are both like Puerto Rican American as well. And this is actually her first like breakthrough role. So I love it when we get new actors, new actresses, and we find out like this is the first thing that really like puts them out there. And oh my gosh, like this girl can sing. When I say I had chills, yeah, I'm gonna just leave it at that. I had chills. Basically, the show, just a little introduction here. Again, you have to watch it. It's one of those shows where, like, okay, she loses her mother. Now, yes, it starts off a bit sad, has a bit of a sad story. So all of you out there who have lost your mother is like me, or lost any parent, any loved one, you can also relate to this show. But it's not to get you sad. It's not to get you depressed. It's actually really good to uplift you and to remind you that even though you may have lost that loved one, that they're always looking out. They're always being in your heart. And that's, of course, if you had a decent relationship or there was no hard feelings. I mean, if there was, at the end of the day, it's all good. So the way the show goes is her and her mother love music, and they always have done it together until her mom has passed. And for a whole year, she decides that she can't do music anymore. And she was part of this music program at her high school. And it's a phenomenal music program because it's already hard to keep a student in or to get in the first place. You really have to work hard to, it's like going to Juilliard, okay? You really have to work hard to stay with the program. The way the show, like the first pilot episode, I mean, the way that they cut to the scenes and explain the story throughout the season, it's amazing. And what I love Kenny Ortega, he sometimes, if he's worked with an actor and actress before, he incorporates them in his new projects. And I'll talk a little about that later. The way the story goes is, as I said, it's a musical. Okay, there's probably going to be a song in almost every episode. And to see it in a TV show and to see it come to life, I feel like he did an amazing job with that. It's a family of her younger brother, Carlos, and then her father, Ray, and her aunt Tia. Her aunt Tia is like here and there. She's a really like great supporting actor. She only comes maybe like 2 or 3 out of like the episodes, but she always has at least some type of like decent or small part in the show. Julie has a best friend, and her best friend and her were basically in a band called Double Trouble together. But again, like I said, for a while, she hasn't done anything that is related to music until she meets these ghosts. These ghosts now are from the 90s. They're called Sunset Curve, and they are a band that was supposed to perform at the Orpheum. And the Orpheum, think of it as Apollo Theater. Think of it that way. It is one of those places where it's like hard to get into, but at the same time, if you finally do get to perform there, you become a legend. Or at least you get a record deal or something with your dreams coming true, like the Apollo. So at Orpheum, for some reason, they're about to go on in like a few minutes, but they go and take a break after their first dress rehearsal. And 3 out of 4 of the boys go and get some street hot dogs. And when I say street hot dogs, for those of you who are from the 90s and have done this before, basically you will get hot dogs out of a car that someone is selling on the side of the road. As the boys talk, they talk about how this is it, their dreams about to come true, like they don't want to wait a second longer, but they're also taking a break. And as soon as they're eating the hot dogs and when they're done, they die. I don't know if there's poison in the hot dogs. I don't know if someone has done something to them while they were eating. We don't know. And the show doesn't really explain that or go into detail yet, because throughout the show, the boys are still trying to figure out what is their unfinished business. But more of that later. Now, the way Julie's family is connected, and here's my theory. They're in the beginning of the pilot episode. There's only one boy that actually did not eat street dogs with them. He claims he's a vegetarian. His name is Bobby. And later we know him as Trevor Wilson. Trevor Wilson had a daughter, and that daughter was friends with Julie. Okay? At least at a certain point in time, they were friends. There is a Puerto Rican looking woman, and she sounds Puerto Rican as well. But the way that they place this woman, she's a waitress at the Orpheum, or at least a server. And the boys give her a shirt called Sunset Curve, We believe that are fans of the show so far that could have been her mother back in the day, because this woman exclaims that, I used to be in a band too. You guys are really good. And yeah, I was in a couple bands. And, she starts talking a little bit about music with them and everything. And they have like a little small conversation. And when the 3 out of the 4 boys go and get the hot dogs that they wanted, one boy stays back and he continues to talk to the woman. So I believe Julie's mother is the one that was in that scene, and that is what a lot of fans are starting to believe, because throughout the show we don't see what her mother looks like. We don't see any pictures actually. And it's weird. It's really weird, because you would think like they would show at least a picture of her in her studio where Julie goes and performs and everything and practices with the boy band. So they actually do become a band together again. That's why the show is called Julie and the Phantoms, because they actually used to rehearse in her family's old garage. That actually was just a garage where they used to rehearse. And somehow, I guess when they got the house, that garage came with it, and then later becomes the mother's studio. Crazy thing is, all their stuff, like their clothes and everything that was in that garage from way back when, and all their instruments and everything from back in the day, they were still there in the mother's studio. I find that very suspicious, because if it was the mother in that first pilot episode and she was able to get their instruments and all that stuff and find out what happened to them, because everyone is saying that it could have been an accident as to how they died, but no one knows how they died at all. Even down to like their parents that are still living and are like hella old, but whatever. So again, Julie was friends with Trevor Wilson's daughter, aka Bobby from Sunset Curve, in the 90s. And Julie's mom dies, but Julie gives up music for a year, gets kicked out of the music program until the ghosts actually figure out a way to get her back into music somehow. She gets back into the program. Sunset Curve, boy band from the 90s. They practice the family's old garage. Great songs to rock out to, and catchy, very catchy. It's all about living dreams, pain, and heartache. Now, to get into about the characters, Boo Boo Stewart, and he's worked with Kenny Ortega many times in the past. You may know him, the character who plays Jay in the movie called Descendants, who is the son of Jafar. You also may know Boo Boo Stewart from Twilight, who plays Seth, part of the Wolf Pack. And we have Jada Marie. Jada Marie is also from Descendants. She plays Dr. Facilier's daughter. So again, like I said, I love how Ortega includes other people he has worked with. So far, we also have a gay love story between Willie and Alex. Willie is Boo Boo Stewart's character, who is also another ghost that we find out on season 1. And Alex is one of the boys in the boy band that turns out to be gay. He is the blonde hair one. The lead singer is Luke, and the other bass player and the other singer, well, they all kind of sing, but the lead singer is Luke, and then the other bass and the other singer is Reggie. And again, of course, we have Bobby. The boy band characters, again, shed a new light on what it means to be a musician, singer, and etc. I love how this show also incorporates a lot of art, incorporates a lot of, especially like dance. They have a lot of band, instruments, singing, everything, the visual effects, the fashion. I mean, these kids are dressing better than I was when I was in high school, especially Julie. Oh my Lord. But anyway, the ghosts bring her back into music. And again, like I said, my theory is the mother is the Puerto Rican actress at the Orpheum where the band was about to play before they died. So, coming up after the commercial, we will go more in detail with Julie and the Phantoms. Again, it's a great show to watch, so stay tuned.
Want to find out what movies to go see? Then check out the GSMC Movie Podcast. It's your ticket to the latest movies, whether it's a new blockbuster event, romantic, comedy, or action flick. This show has got it all covered. They talk some what to go see now. Don't bother. What's hot on Netflix and everything in between. That's GSMCpodcast.com/movie-podcast. When it's all about the movies, it has to be this new show. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Welcome back from the break, everyone. So we're coming to a close, towards our episode tonight. So if you're now tuning in with us, so far we have been discussing Julie and the Phantoms and how you can watch it right now on Netflix. It's about 9 episodes, and it is a awesome show to watch if you love anything with music, anything with instruments, fashion, betrayal, romance. It has it all. Again, this is Kenny Ortega's successful new show on Netflix. And I just love the fact that, like, when other people work with so many other top companies, because obviously he worked with Disney for so many years, and now he's moving towards Netflix. So it's really amazing. So where we take off from the show is basically I was explaining how the ghost literally brought Julie back into music since her mother died. So again, the connection and the theory that could be around Julie's mother, I can't wait to see more of that in season 2. So the woman, again, that states in the beginning, in the pilot episode, that she was in a band herself, and later we see in the show that Julie ends up with actually Sunset Curve's album, as well as Sunset Curve's t-shirt, and among her mother's belongings. And it's a suitcase full of like all this stuff that whether she went to a concert, whether she had music written, whatever CDs or albums that she owned, her clothes that she used to wear probably when she was performing. Like, it's like so many different things that her mom was into. Like, her mom was like amazing, and the band members continue to tell her that too before they actually start becoming a band themselves, is your mom is amazingly talented. Because there's this one emotional episode on the show where Julie, like I said, she hasn't sung and hasn't played the piano in like forever, and she couldn't even do it in class, even for her music program. And she found a song from the boys, the Ghost Boys, and they found the song, they were reading it, and they were like, it's amazingly good. And one morning she sings the song, and oh my gosh, the tears that is coming down this actress' face, like, you really felt the loss and the pain that she has experienced losing her mother. Her mother meant a lot to her. And me, I can relate a lot to that because my mother means a lot to me. And for any of you out there that has also lost their mother, like, you will really feel it in that episode when she's singing her heart out. And it's almost as if she could feel her mom's presence there as well. It's really emotional, but it's like a healthy emotional, if that makes any type of sense. Like I said, it's just weird how she ends up, and her best friend is the one to find that shirt called Sunset Curve, and either have been the waitress. It's so many different people that could have been the mother, but I highly think it is, and I really hope they make that character her mother, because it just goes so well, because a lot of fans right now are asking that. But there was also a few other women that were on the line, like waiting to get into the show, like before they died, that also were given the t-shirts. Now, I don't know if there were maybe like a day before or a few days before they actually got that gig, if they were giving t-shirts to somebody else, and that could have been the mother, but they never show what happens the night before the Orpheum show. There's a lot of questions going on right now. Will the boys ever find their unfinished business? That's number one in my theory. Here's why. When what they thought was their unfinished business, anything that was relatable to Bobby, because what we find out is very heartbreaking. Bobby clearly did not care that his band members died. And like I said, I feel like he has something to do with it. He has a lot of skeletons in his closet that he would have to go ahead and figure out in season 2. Only because he actually takes credit for a lot of the songs that the lead singer writes. It seems like the lead singer was like the writer of basically, or majority of their songs. I'm not saying the other band members didn't write songs too, but most of the songs, or basically all the songs that they sang, and apparently that Julie grew up on, because again, she was friends with their ex-band member's daughter, and they were actually best friends. It's just funny how everything, it just connects, because he ends up becoming Trevor Wilson, this big like rock star who sold out places everywhere, has platinum albums and platinum records, and he has a big house, and oh my gosh, like, it's just amazing. Like, there was one episode where he's calling to actually get into Orpheum because he realized that his ex-band members are, like, back somehow, and they still look like them young selves, and he couldn't do nothing. It looked like he was literally peeing on himself the way his face was, because he was like, oh my God, that's really them. But it was crazy how easy it was for him to just call up someone and just be like, yeah, I need a ticket to Orpheum now, or a seat to Orpheum, I should say, not even a ticket. And he was like, yeah, and a +1. Because of who he is. And what they think their unfinished business is was actually to play at the Orpheum, because that's what they wanted to do right before they died. And they make this crazy deal with this ghost named Caleb. And Caleb basically is evil, of course. There's always going to be an antagonist. And Caleb has powers kind of like how they do, and at least ghost powers, where he can actually have a connection with humans, and they call them lifers, people who are still living, to see them, because the ghosts have a connection with Julie, and she can see them, and she can sing with them, and it's only, this is so cool, it's only when Julie performs with them, if they have a gig as their new band, that everyone could see them. But the crazy thing is, they disappear. It's really weird. So they're not able to have, like, applause or anything like that. Like, you can't clap for them because, again, you can't see them anymore. Only when they're literally, like, just singing in the music. It's really weird. So I hope in season 2 that expands to the point where at least, like, now Julie's family can also see them, like, 24/7. Because if you are not Julie, the only way you can see them is if they're performing. But you can also hear their music, though. But you can't see them if they were to perform by themselves without Julie. So it's a weird connection. And Caleb, he actually owns a club, and he goes all over around the world and travels. And it's kind of like a jazzy type, burlesque type club, where if you work for him and you're under his contract, you're under his seal as a member of the Ghost Club of Hollywood, you will be seen by other humans that are into that type of stuff. They're into ghosts and the afterlife. And if they become a ghost themselves, they probably will likely want to join Caleb. And the boys at this time, they thought like Caleb would actually help them to get back at Bobby, aka Trevor Wilson. But it ends up turning out that Caleb had his own plans all along. So you have to watch the show to find out more about that. And then we want to know, too, if Bobby will ever tell the truth about stealing the band's songs, to at least give them recommendation to their parents, especially Luke's parents, who think that he died not really doing what he wanted to do. And he didn't, like, no one has heard of him. No one has heard of Sunset Curve. And, like, they heard of them, but it's like they probably only know a little bit about them only because finally Bobby probably revealed to them at a certain point in time in an interview as he was getting up to fame. Yeah, that was my band, and it's unfortunate that they died. Like, I can see it now, him in an interview doing that. But he never gave them the credit. He said he probably claims that he came up with all the songs and the music. And, of course, he's going to get the credit because he's the only last living band member. I hope that changes. And another question would be probably if they ever continue the band as holograms or as ghosts. And again, this is going back to my first question, because I feel like eventually they will have to come clean that they actually died in a horrible accident. Hopefully even if it is an accident, they'll have to find out maybe if they got murdered or like what's going on with that. We want to know if Julie and Luke will ever have a real relationship. I want to know, because at the ending of season 1, she is actually able to feel Luke, like physically feel him and the other band members. And again, going back to Caleb's seal that was put on them when they tried to become members, but they didn't want to. They was like, we already have a band. We're with Julie. We have to happily decline. And Caleb was not happy with that. But she broke the seal, and we're all thinking it's probably because of love and friendship and the power of the band that she was able to use whatever positive light energy that she has. And when she hugs them all, they were able to break free from Caleb's spell. And we definitely want to know, because at the ending of season 1, there's definitely going to be a season 2, when her crush Nick from school comes to her door, I guess, to congratulate her and asks her out again. And she had a crush on him forever, but now that she met the boy band, as she met Luke, she kind of got occupied with all her time and started falling for Luke instead. But we see Caleb actually at her house too, and he somehow figures out a way to possess the boy crush Nick. So that's not good at all. And so we definitely want to know if Nick will be possessed forever, and of course if Caleb will get his revenge. We got to see it. I definitely want to see a relationship between Alex and Willie. A lot of fans are applauding this gay relationship because I don't think Boo Boo Stewart is gay in real life, but that's not the point. The point is that the fact that the representation is there, because especially in these trying times, it's like when it comes to your sexual orientation or your race, you are harmed for that. And I love how they made sure to incorporate that in there between these two gentlemen. We definitely want to know, too, how the hell did Julie's mom die? No one mentions that for some reason. They don't mention if she has cancer, did she have a heart attack, did she have some type of disease, nothing. Just that her mom died. That's it. And I want to know if the ghost will ever be physically able to, like, again, visible to the rest of the family, like Aunt Tia, her brother, and her father. And will the boy band or the band with Julie and the Phantoms ever become famous? Because things change. I want to see if Julie and her friend will perform again as Double Trouble. Like, is that completely, like, off the charts? Or is it just about Julie and the Phantoms now? Throughout the show, they tested each other a lot to become a band, and that is, again, like what broke Caleb's seal, because there was a certain point in time where, like, in the beginning, they really didn't trust each other, and they kind of turned their back on each other for certain instances, whether it was a gig or whether it was just showing, like, you have to really be there for your friends, especially new friends. And I definitely want to know, too, if Carrie and Julie will ever be friends again, or will she be against Julie once they try and figure out what's going on between Bobby and the band members. Trevor, does he know what happened to the boys? And did he know what happened to Julie's mom? That is definitely a big question. It probably will be answered as well in season 2. Especially if the waitress that was in the pilot season was Julie's mother. Bobby was the last one, aka Trevor, to talk to her mom. So we need to see what's going on there. Because I'm assuming that if it was her, she definitely started having kids like a few years after, since this was 25 years ago when they died. Julie had a connection to the band from since she was a kid through Trevor's music, but really it was Luke's music, because Luke is the one that actually sat down and wrote those lyrics for the band. So it's very interesting. Another suspicious person besides Caleb and Bobby is Aunt Tia. She's very suspicious because she doesn't even mention like how the mother died or anything like that. At least her character didn't get any lines to do so. And I definitely want to find out if she's older or younger than the mother, and also if she musically talented as well, or is she just jealous of like what the sister had, like her family. Her character basically tries to support the family any way possible that she thinks she could, but she's kind of overstepping, because there was a scene where Julie basically gets caught by her father for like missing school and lying, and her aunt comes over because she is probably put down as another guardian for the school to help the father out. And of course she sometimes helps watch the younger brother and the daughter whenever the father has to go out and work. He's like a professional photographer and videographer. And she oversteps because just like she's telling the father like how to discipline the kids. That's definitely going to be a problem, I think, in season 2, because it's going to come to a certain point in time. Everything is all good between the three of them, and the aunt, for some reason, she just wants to like, she wanted them to actually like move away from the house. She felt like, oh, moving out the house and starting over will actually start helping everyone to heal from the inside out. And there was a scene where Ray and Julie talked about, well, I feel like if we're actually going to move on, we have to move on from the inside, not the outside, which is true. If you're grieving, you have to move on from the inside, not from the outside. Literally, sometimes moving abruptly, it doesn't help all the time, but in some cases, it actually does, to start fresh and start new, especially if there's nothing else left for you around that environment that you had. So it's very controversial, that conversation that they had. And I want to know too if Aunt Tia has anything to do with her sister's death. She's another suspect of mine. maybe she secretly, I don't know, was jealous of her musical talents, or does she want the father for herself? Anyway, again, you can watch this show on Netflix. Right now, it is trending. You must see it, especially if you're a fan, again, of Hocus Pocus, High School Musical, Descendants. This is definitely the TV show for you on Netflix right now. So please go ahead and watch it. And literally, like, take the time to actually, like, sit there and not just watch a show and figure out if it's good or bad for you to watch. But at the same time, if it literally is something that you can actually break down when it comes to characters. And if you ever have any like questions or comments to us, like you could definitely leave it to us on our social media in regards to this episode. So that would be all for our show tonight. Thank you for listening to the GSMC TV show podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I would like to ask that you please remember to subscribe to the show and write a nice review. That really helps us. Also, if you can please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thank you, and have a good night.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts television podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts podcast network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts podcast network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.